This is Democracy Watch. Marc, all eyes are on the courts right now as we continue to engage in a raft of litigation against the Trump administration. And we're paying particularly close attention to the prospect of what happens if Trump and his White House refuse to comply with a court order. And of course, that would usher in something of a constitutional crisis. So that's why all eyes are on the court. We're now in a situation where we may very well see exactly that playing out. So can you explain what happened with the latest instance in court where there was an order to resume funding for USAID, and yet we're now seeing pushback from the administration?
Yeah, so you are exactly right. And everyone needs to pay attention to this, okay? We have been inching, like literally step by step, towards the Trump administration simply saying they're not going to follow court orders. Now, I want to be clear. They had not gotten to this point. They have been essentially saying, we are complying with your court orders, but they're saying it in a way that is disingenuous. It's basically a game of cat and mouse. They are pretending as if they are complying with the orders, as if they are, when in fact they're not. And you are right. The magic line is when they start to say, you know what, we heard your order, we're just not going to comply with it. So That is where we go from like approaching a constitutional crisis to a full-blown constitutional crisis. And we are now inching towards that because in a case, as you point out, in the District of Columbia, brought by Public Citizen against the Department of State over the suspension of USAID aid, a judge issued a very specific order that enjoined, in other words, blocked the suspension of appropriated foreign assistance programs and enjoined the issuance of termination, suspensions, or stop work orders in connection with those grants, and ordered specifically that Marco Rubio and the other defendants in that case, quote, take all necessary steps to effectuate the order. So on its face, this was very clear, which is you have to stop, what you're doing. You have to reinstate these grants, and you have to take all the appropriate steps necessary to effectuate that order. Well, it turns out that when the Department of State was required to submit their report back to the court that they were complying with the order, they basically said, no, we're actually still suspending aid. We actually have not restored it, and we are still suspending it, and we are not doing the things that we were told to do. Now, they are still saying that they are complying. They are still saying they read the order differently, but here's the big deal here. The plaintiffs are moving for contempt, and we have not seen that before. They are saying, Your Honor, this is now in bad faith. This is no longer a good faith or even an arguably good faith disagreement about what the order said. This was done willfully in violation of your court order, and you, Your Honor, need to hold them in contempt. And that is definitely one big step closer to this final line that we have all feared.
If the judge does opt to hold the Trump administration in contempt, is that a de facto acknowledgement that in fact we are witnessing in real time the Trump administration not complying with court orders and thereby kind of validating this idea that we're in a constitutional crisis?
Yeah, that would be a finding that they had defied a court order. I mean, that would be the contempt is the remedy when a party violates a court order. Now, at that point, the Trump administration would have two choices, which is why I'm not saying we've taken the final step, but you can see we are very close if that happens, because the Trump administration has two choices at that point. It can apologize, which I know that sounds bizarre, Brian, but that's actually what usually happens if you are found in contempt, or if you're even in this stage, you're like, look, Your Honor, we apologize. I did not understand it the way you did, but I'm going to take the punishment because I get it. We violated your court order, but they back away from the abyss. The other alternative is perhaps a little more Trumpian.
Yeah.
Which is that they just speed through it and say, no, you're wrong. And then we have crossed that Rubicon, right? Then we have crossed it where they're saying, we don't agree with Your Honor's orders.
Is there something to be said for what the Trump administration is trying to do by virtue of kind of normalizing this behavior and getting closer and closer and then taking a step back? And then the next time they go a little bit closer and take a step back so that it doesn't feel so dire to those of us on the outside who are trained particularly closely on the prospect of falling over that cliff.
Yeah, look, I am very focused on it, and I have been arguing, every day and writing on Democracy Docket every day about not shifting this Overton window,
Right.
like not normalizing this,
Right.
because this is dangerous stuff, guys. If people out there start to normalize that people can, you know, wink and a nod, violate court orders, and then stop the winking, and then stop the nodding,
Right.
right? Like none of this is okay. I mean, not even where we are is okay. I mean, these lawyers should be like literally, we talk a lot about bowing and scraping. They should be bowing and scraping to this judge, apologizing profusely and assuring the court that this will never happen again, and that Marco Rubio has insisted this will never happen again, and that he has appointed an internal independent watchdog to make sure this does not happen again, right? I mean, that is the normal that you would see. You would see people fired in like the Biden administration or, the Bush administration or the Obama administration. People would be fired at this point. So I am worried that we are seeing that normalization, Brian. And it's just critically important that we not let that happen.
Well, first of all, you brought up Democracy Docket. You have been beating this issue like a drum. Highly recommend for anybody watching right now, if you are not yet signed up for Democracy Docket, please sign up. It is an invaluable resource that I use on a daily basis. It's also worth it for us to support good, fearless, independent journalism, and that is exactly what Marc is doing with that outlet. So I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Marc, people are going to look at this and say, look, this is just some small case regarding USAID funding that was already allocated. This isn't some big, it doesn't feel like some big constitutional crisis case. And so what do you say to those folks, given the fact that Trump may very well be focusing on something that does feel rather insignificant, USAID funding, in order to set this precedent that he is going to establish by virtue of, not following court orders?
Brian, just today, Donald Trump referred to himself as a king.
Yeah.
Okay. Like in a post on social media. On February 15th, a few days ago, he posted, "He who saves his country does not violate the law," which is a quote from a dictator, Napoleon. So, this is not a small matter. I mean, this is not a small issue. This is the leading edge of a trend that we are seeing from someone who told us before he was elected he wanted to be a dictator. He told us before he was elected, don't worry, Christians, you won't have to worry about voting in the future. He told us before he was elected, and has joked ever since about not being bound to only serve 2 terms, running again. And now he is posting about being a king, about being above the law. So if people out there are not awake by this, if they are not mobilized by this, then frankly, they are not paying attention to what is happening here. Donald Trump wants to be a dictator. He wants to be an authoritarian. It is why right now he is selling out the Ukrainian people to make nice with Vladimir Putin, because he aspires to be someone like Vladimir Putin. And so when you see Justice Department lawyers resigning over and over again over being asked to do illegal things or unethical things, and you see something like this where the remaining lawyers in the Department of Justice are filing papers that are potentially subject to contempt, we are very close to that big constitutional crisis, and it is deadly serious.
Well, building on that, and that was perfectly put. For most of the people who are watching this right now, they are keyed in. They do recognize the stakes of the moment that we're in right now. And so what would you say to those people who do understand the gravity of this moment in terms of what the rest of us, is there anything that the rest of us can do moving forward that would be helpful, in terms of this broader movement? Because I know that there is a general sense of helplessness at watching this stuff unfold before our eyes.
Yeah, look, the other side wants you to feel helpless. The other side wants you to believe that it's a fait accompli. There is nothing you can do. That Donald Trump is all powerful, that Elon Musk is all powerful, and literally you are powerless. When you feel powerless, you are giving in to Donald Trump. So here's what I want everyone to do. Okay, I want everyone right now to say to themselves that they have the power to stop the authoritarianism that we see. And I want them not only to say it, I want them to believe it. And then I want them to go to 2 friends and tell them, what the stakes are, and that they need to spread the word about what is happening. Because here's the thing, not all of us are you, Brian. You command millions of people see your videos every day. But each and every one of you watching this, you have a town square that you can step out into right now, and you can call this out for what it is. And if we all do that, if we all talk to our friends, our families, our neighbors, our customers, our clients, if we all post on our own social media that may be much smaller than yours, if we all post on our YouTube channels, which is much smaller than Brian's, if we all go to our Facebook groups and our knitting clubs and our bridge clubs and our book clubs, and we talk about this and not allow it to be normalized, you know what? The wannabe dictator will back away. The wannabe dictator will back down, and democracy will survive. But if we all feel powerless, we all feel helpless, and we all just turn it all out and tune it all out because we're tired, then that's when the other side wins. So here's the thing. I'm sorry you're tired. I'm tired too. Brian's tired. There's no one harder working than this guy. I mean, look how many videos he posts. But we're all tired, okay? But now's the time that you can't be tired. Now's the time that you gotta step up and you gotta spread the word of what we need to do to protect democracy.
And that was perfectly put. I would just add that, look, Trump has the advantage of the biggest megaphone in the world. He has the advantage of a Republican Congress and a Republican court, all of whom have contracted every ounce of their autonomy over to him and the executive branch. He has the advantage of Elon Musk's unlimited funding. But popular pressure is more powerful than all of that. And if we show popular pressure, none of those things will matter. Not all of those things will bend in the face of an uprising of popular support. So just something to keep in mind, that all the money in the world, all the power in the world, and the biggest megaphone in the world do not hold a candle to the fact that if we're able to wield public pressure on our side, there's nothing that can overcome that.
And Brian, I want to tie this to actually the very last episode that you and I did together, which I hope everyone goes back and watches, because I got such an outpouring of support. This was about how Elon Musk had targeted me on social media and said that I had suffered generational trauma. And I wrote a piece on Democracy Docket about it. It's free on the website now. We've literally taken paywall out so that everybody can see it, because there's been such an outpouring of support. And in it, I talk about the fact that Donald Trump may command the federal government, and Elon Musk may be able to, be the richest person, the most powerful person in the world. But I point out that, my family is in this country that came from nothing, because we believed in American democracy and know that if we stand up, we can fight back. And I know that's true about you and your family as well. And I ended it by telling them this. My Hebrew name is Elchanan, which is one of the members of David's army who slayed Goliath. And if Elchanan, with a young boy with a slingshot, can take down a giant, certainly all of us together, all of us putting pressure, all of us speaking out, we can certainly stand up to a tin pot dictator like Donald Trump and his megalomaniac narcissistic backer like Elon Musk.
Perfectly put. That is the shot of energy in the ass that everybody needed right now. So, of course, again, for folks who are watching right now, to support the very clearly invaluable work that Marc and his team are doing, please sign up for Democracy Docket. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Marc Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.